Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Grizzly is on the hunt still. What a show do we have in tell for you tonight? We have a special guest from coast to coast and around the world. We have somebody that I've been expecting for quite a while. Looks like everything is lined up for us to finally have him on our show. Let's break him on and see how he's doing. Robert Gutro, are you there?
Hi, Grizzly. Yes, nice to be
Welcome
here.
to
Thank
the
you
show,
for having
sir.
me.
Give us a little history about yourself.
Well, I consider myself kind of an average guy, but I just happen to have the ability to have be able to communicate with people who passed and pets who passed. Um, I discovered that as a teenager, and in 2005, when a puppy of mine passed away, he opened the door for me to communicate with pets. So that changed a whole bunch of things, and he inspired me to write a book, my first book, and now I'm up to number 10.
Wow. Amazing. That is. That's very amazing.
It's been a journey. In the meantime, I'm also a medium and paranormal investigator with the Inspired Ghost Tracking Group of Hanover, Maryland. So I do private investigations too. So I deal with people and pets, earthbound ghosts and spirits who have crossed over as well. So quite a variety.
Oh, I could only imagine now. I haven't dealt with any of the afterlife and pets. I deal with paranormal and Bigfoot and cryptids and spirits. But so the passing of your pet, I mean, how did that get you involved with everything in the paranormal? I mean, how did it all evolve?
Well, really, when it all began when I was about 13, and after my grandfather passed away, he appeared to me when I was home with our family dog. And he appeared to me in full color, and nobody else was home. And he scared me. 13 years old, you don't expect a dead grandfather to show up. So um, I did tell my parents about it. My mother didn't act surprised, and she confessed that this gift runs on her side of the family,
Oh,
but she didn't use it. So, I kind of buried it. When you're 13, you get involved with school and stuff, and over time, I mean, it took decades for it to come back out again. It wasn't until 1997. I was living in a two-bedroom house. I was renting a room, and that house turned out to be haunted by a Civil War soldier, as it was. He died of the flu in Kentucky. And that was my next paranormal experience. And then in 2005, my puppy passed, and he started giving me messages. And as soon as he came through, that opened the door for all the humans to come back through. So that's my journey.
wow. So does the humans, do they just come to you random or
Well,
how do they come to you?
yeah. So typically, I go on investigations, paranormal investigations, with the ghost tracking group, and we try to figure out what's going on. Um, in terms of spirits, the only ones that really come to me, the human spirits that come to me, are like relatives of my own. And I've learned that our relatives, our friends, our pets on the other side usually come around on birthdays, anniversaries, and holidays, because they know, even pets know that those are special occasions because they read our emotional energy and they know our emotions are more elevated. So they want to show up and let us know they're okay.
Wow. And that's so amazing to hear. Because everybody's always asked their questions, because, you know, my pets have always been my children, right? They've always been so close and dear to me, like others. And a lot of people that don't have that bond or experience don't understand it. So, but yeah, that's really amazing. So this journey that you've been on throughout your lifetime, expand on it. Let us know. I mean, we're down at the bit to understand it.
So the other part of me is that during the day in my career job, I'm a scientist. I'm a meteorologist. So normally the paranormal and the scientific don't come together, but
No.
I join them using the science of energy. And the science of energy is what I use to explain how ghosts and spirits exist, how they get strong enough to communicate, the types of energy that they need to get strong enough to do that, and the different ways in which they communicate with us. So, really, energy is the foundation of the paranormal, in my opinion, and in my experience.
Yeah, I mean, I could actually see that. With your background in your medical field, how does your constituents feel that you're dabbling with the afterlife? Do they
Oh, I
say,
don't talk to other scientists about my about my abilities.
I can see some bad mojo going on there. Absolutely.
It's like being Clark Kent and Superman. we don't we don't
Right.
talk about being Superman, right?
Yeah, because when I finally, I guess you can say, came out of the closet years ago with the afterlife and paranormal experiences,
Mhm.
it was finally accepted. Everybody was coming clean, and everybody was truly understanding. But as growing up, it wasn't. You didn't talk about your experiences or your sightings or cryptids and monsters and ghosts and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to date myself here, but I was born in the 60s and I absolutely remember that. I mean, even though as a kid, I remember seeing specials on Bigfoot on TV and I was fascinated by them. Um, so, uh, and my grandfather, the one who passed, interestingly enough, and this is why I think he came to me, the only thing I remember about him, because he died when I was 12. Um, the only thing I remember about him is that he had a library of books about UFOs, Bigfoot, and I think ghosts. So he understood that, and I think that's why he was the one that came through to me.
Well, it's amazing because we're not that far apart. I was born in 74, and my grandfather died when I was 12 or 13. I don't remember which year. And oddly enough, my grandfather has come back many a times. And still to this day, from my psychic personal friends, have acknowledged him to this day, is still being around. Explains why things are being knocked off the wall while I'm being moved. I got tired of hanging them and correcting pictures being tilted. He's a prankster, but also validated some things when I was on the law enforcement department. With some other officers, they saw them while looking through my patrol car and so forth,
Wow.
and the last psychic I had on my show, she's a personal friend, and she's talk about taps. I'm like, I'm not tap dancing. I've been hurt. I'm walking on a cane. She's like, no, taps, taps. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, you used to be down at the lake, stand on the outside of the porch, and at 6 o'clock every night, you used to play taps, and it used to echo for miles at the lake. And I was like, nobody knew that. She's like, I'm just validating that your grandfather is there with you right now, and he's wanting me to tell you that.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, I about fell out of my chair because nobody knows about that at all. And that was one thing that he said to my mom and my grandmother before he passed. It's he would never see me play the trumpet, when I grew up. Because he played, I think, the bugle in the Marine Corps, and then he went to the Air Force and flew fighter planes and stuff. So But so it's weird that we have some kind of a same connection with the grandfather, because everybody on my mom's side has come back. So it's really interesting that you mentioned that.
Yeah,
It
well,
really is. So I
probably
heard you got a new book coming out.
I do. So I have 3 series of books, and although before we started, I told you I never set out really to be an author, but and I've always liked to write, and I've always kept a diary, so it all came together. So I have 3 series of books, and one is called Ghosts and Spirits. There's 4 books in that series. Another one is Ghosts on a Medium's Vacation, because whenever I go on vacation, dead people like to talk to me. And the third series is Pets in the Afterlife, and I am releasing Pets in the Afterlife 4 tomorrow, so you get the exclusive jump on it. It's Pets in the Afterlife 4: Messages from Spirit Cats. Dogs were in number 3, and all domesticated animals were in 1 and 2. So
Wow.
so tomorrow's going to be the perfect day for my new book.
I like that. Perfect. That is awesome. You know, which is really weird, and I'm getting the hairs on my arm standing up, is that I was told by one of my other psychic friends last year sometime that they said, you're going to write a book. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I don't have that any of my plans. Trust me. They're like, no, you're going to write a book. I'm telling you. I laughed. But my other psychic friend was like, did you know you're going to write a book? I'm like, why is everybody telling me I'm not going to write a book? Well, guess what? I'm in the process of writing a book on psychics and
Oh, that's
mediums.
fantastic.
So, it's just amazing how things come to a point and actually really happens when you don't think it is. But it's really interesting the journey that I've seen, the transformation that you have gone through over the years with your journey of the different books that you have written and wrote. It's such amazing. I mean, how do these come to you? Is it just, by thought or experiences or?
Well, they're all based on my experiences. So I do not write anything that I myself didn't experience. So the Pets in the Afterlife series is they contain explanations about how pets can communicate, and I explain some of the science in there too. So you'll learn about how pets learn in life. Like they learn in a lot of different levels, like instinctual learning. They learn language. They learn body language. They learn habits. They learn routine. They can read our emotions. You'll also learn how scientists have confirmed that pets have the same exact emotional response that humans do. And I cite studies by Dr. Gregory Burns, a neuroscientist, and he explains how he proved that dogs have the same emotions that humans do by doing MRIs on their brains. So there's a lot of science in there as well. But when I do readings, I do readings on weekends for people who lost pets, and I have to actually make appointments because the demand is overwhelming. I'm booked out to December 2023. So there are kids. So it's the Pets in the Afterlife books, especially 2, 3, and 4, contain readings that I have done for people, and they have let me use them and share the confirmations. And some of them have been just tremendous, whether it be a certain toy or a certain flower that represents a dog, how they've come through in different ways and give signs, whether audible signs, visual signs, leading us to another pet that looks like them. There's a whole host of things. So that series, the Pets in the Afterlife series, is based on my experiences and my readings a lot. The other books are based on my investigations, paranormal investigations, or my trips, wherever I've gone. And I've run into historic figures, not well-known historic figures. I've never run into uh, Henry VIII, although I was in England and I did a book called Ghosts of England on a Medium's Vacation. But I did run into others that I wound up proving their identities.
Wow. Yeah, let's I'm bitten at the chomp to hear some of these stories and encounters. I really am.
Okay. So do you want to hear pet stories?
Oh, give some
You want to hear
examples.
all?
Yeah.
Well, set me up and I'll come through for you.
Whatever you want to start with. Pets, ghost. Have you done any Bigfoot, cryptids?
I have not. I have not had the opportunity to do that yet because I've been overwhelmed with the human ghosts and spirits who've crossed over and the pets.
See, I don't know how you all can do it. That's one thing. Now, the last show I just done before you got on was true crimes or paranormal and true crime stories.
Mhm.
And I work with the renowned known psychic Jeanette Lucas, works with local law enforcement, FBI agents, and murder cases, missing person cases, cold cases, everything. And she asked me at the end, she's like, "What gets your skin crawling?" I'm like, "Well, nothing yet." And then when you asked me that, it's like, well, I don't know if I can actually ever do something like you all can, because I don't know if I can ever turn that off. I don't know if you can or not.
Sometimes I can. Most times I can. Really, it's all about focusing on what you're doing, and hoping that you don't have to book a hotel that's haunted. So, um, I have done a couple of. I've stayed at a luxury hotel in England, and it was Thornbury Castle. It used to be a castle that was built in the 1500s during the Tudor period, and it's turned into. And then it was abandoned when it was halfway constructed because Henry VIII beheaded the guy that owned it, and that turned out to be haunted. There was a ghost, a male ghost, in my room, and I figured out who he was when I got home because he gave me all the clues about. He gave me the year that he was there. He told me about a certain war. He gave me his first name, and then when I came home, I put all the pieces together and I figured out who he was. But I do not like to stay in haunted places because they don't stop talking.
Wow.
So, but for the most part, I can kind of block them out. But when it comes to trying to get a hold of spirits like pets, I do that a certain way. When I do readings, I ask people to send me a picture of their pet and their pet's name. Tell me how many people are in the family, because if they're little kids want to be acknowledged by their pet that passed. And then ask me any questions, and then I go from there. So that's how I connect to spirit. But earthbound ghosts are a different story. I've found that earthbound ghosts can sense who is a medium, who can hear them or sense them or feel them, so they come through quickly.
Really?
Yeah, it's all about energy, and they're reading the energy of mediums like myself. So let me ask you this: if you've gone into a room with a lot of people in it, right, at some point in your life,
Mm-hmm.
have you felt like you wanted to talk to somebody? You were just drawn to somebody, and conversely, you wanted to avoid somebody else.
Yes.
So you're reading the energy of that person, and that's what mediums do. And we do that. We just read energy of people or pets who passed on. So any living person has the ability to act kind of like a medium.
That makes sense. It really does. Now, has that affected your relationship growing up or relationships?
Well, uh, not really until I met my partner, and then it was right. I actually met my partner the same year that my puppy died, and he started coming through with all these signs. So when I explained this, and it was like, okay, whatever. And then I wanted to start to try and develop my abilities. So what we did is we went to historic places around where I live, and I would go in and I would see if I could sense anybody, and often I would, and he would say, go talk to the house historian and see if somebody like that lived here at a certain time. Um, and I remember my very first place. It was called the Bel Air Mansion, and it was in Maryland. And I remember walking in the door, and there was a little girl, and she was about 6 years old. And um, she she told me that she lived there, and she died there also, and she wanted to show me her bedroom. And I said, okay. So, I looked at my partner and I said, "There's a little girl here, and she wants me to show me her bedroom, where her toys were and where a crib still sits." And there was a roll of the eyes. And he said, "Just go ahead." So I went up there, and then I came back down, and I asked the historian. I said, "Was there a little girl around 5 or 6 years old who died here?" Um, and the historian said, "Yes. How do you know that?" And I just said, "I'm just asking." And they said her gravestone is in the backyard, in the very, very far back of the property, which went on for quite a while. And they said if you go down during the daytime, it was nighttime when we were there. If you go down during the daytime, all the way down behind the property, you'll see a little graveyard. So we went back another day, and sure enough, there was her grave, and her name was Anna. She told me her name was Anna. And that just freaked me out. So that was my really first experience trying to prove this ability.
Wow, that's amazing. It really is. See, I don't know what I would do with abilities, something like that. I really don't. The only abilities I have is my daughters would tell you is I can tell when you're telling me the truth or not. They call me
Oh,
the
that's a good one to have.
human lie detector. They always told their boyfriends or friends to come over, stop. If my dad asks you a question, tell him the truth. You'll know if you're telling the truth or not. I'm telling you. And I was blessed in that in a way. I think a lot of training helped, but in the civilian side of it,
Mhm.
people just couldn't understand how I got certain confessions out of people, and I went far in corporate with a couple of companies, and they were like, we're going to send people down from other side of corporate and sit in with you when you interview people and see how you get these confessions out of these employees and blah blah blah. I'm like, I'm doing different. Only thing I had to do was take a civilian class because all my law enforcement classes, weren't necessary, but I had to take a civilian class. When I took the civilian class, the instructor told me to keep my mouth shut because I knew too much. But so it was an easy ride for me for 2.5 days. So
Wow.
yeah, so it's always been a blessing in disguise at one point because nobody can actually pull something over on me, especially when it comes to people that were close to me. Unfortunately, maybe some loved ones and some of your upper management bosses. I was always put my hand up and be like, they're like, I hate you, Schlager. And just tell me you don't want to talk, you know.
So
But
you
I'm
were
like,
probably reading their energy, so you
yeah.
could tell if they were not telling the truth.
Oh, I was good with micro expressions. I got into handwriting analysis. They would test me, in the civilian market with here's a statement, here's two statements, who's telling the truth. Give me 5 minutes, I can tell you exactly who's going down, who did what. It was just secondhand nature. I just loved it. I soaked everything up. But you, No, I don't know if I can do stuff like that. That would spook me. I mean, sitting there in a restaurant and all of a sudden you just see somebody or somebody speaking to you.
Well, that actually did happen. That was another adventure in England. We were at a restaurant called the Old Thatch Tavern in I think it was Stratford-upon-Avon, and there was a waitress she looked like a waitress. She was walking over with a basket full of bread, and we were sitting having dinner, and I looked over at her to say, um, could you come here? And um, suddenly I looked over at my partner and I said, would you like some bread? There's a waitress over there that has bread. And it's like, no, that's okay. And I turned around, the waitress was gone. She just vanished in thin air. She was somebody that worked there in the late 1600s.
Oh,
And I was wondering why she was in period costume, you know. But I had totally mistaken her as a living person.
yeah.
It was kind of crazy.
Yeah. No. Yeah, that would definitely turn me EBGBs on, I guess I could say.
Well, I will tell you that the comforting side of this is to be able to communicate with pets, because I have decided really to only do readings for pets, because Grizzly, they are the epitome of love, unconditional love. And you know from your profession that people have way too many hangups.
Yes.
So, and I will tell you about the last reading I did for a person that made me decide to do pets. But pets can give you a lot of information, because they really do observe what's going on in the house, and they hear words and they hear actions and they read emotions. That they know you're happy, you're sad, you're angry, you need time away alone, you want their attention, and so forth. And when they come across to me, there's a number of ways that they do come across to me. They will show me images in my head, so I can describe the inside of a house in a country I've never been to, because I get email requests from countries all over the world. And I like Turkey. Turkey is one example. I've never been to Turkey. I don't even know what a house looks like in Turkey, but yet the pet was showing me what the house looks like. Sometimes they will come through to me, and I can hear them speak words, because pets will learn words. They know sit, stay, they know go for a ride, they know treat time, they know go to bed, they know all those kinds of things. So I will hear those words because they can repeat them telepathically to me. It's not like they're making up words. They don't have that ability to do that. So that's one of the interesting things about working with pets.
That's wild. That's wild. It's just, see, when you bring items up like that, it just reminds me of I'm a big Chihuahua fan.
Mm-hmm.
And I always rescue Chihuahuas all my whole life. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. And I have two, not in my possession now, but my daughter has, since I'm in the transition of moving. But it's real amazing to meet somebody with your talent and your capabilities that actually does that. I never met somebody that actually has abilities to do what you're capable of doing. It's such an amazing, talent that you have. And
I call it a superpower because I like superheroes.
there's
So,
nothing wrong with that. It is a
it's-
superpower. So superhero. Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
superheroes that don't always ask for superpowers, but they're born with them. So at first I was really weirded out by it, but then I realized that I could actually bring comfort to people and give them closure. And I've been able to do that a lot. And I'm very grateful. There have only been a couple of instances in the 12 years that I've been reading pets that I haven't been able to connect, or I was actually connecting to a pet that was coming up in the next reading. That's only happened like 3 times in the 12 years that I've been doing this. And I will tell you that they maintain their personality. So Chihuahuas can be stubborn. So
Oh, yes.
if they're stubborn in life, they're going to be stubborn on the other side. And sometimes they'll be kind of standoffish. One of our dogs, we have a dachshund and two dachshund mixes, and one of the dachshunds is mixed with a Chihuahua. And he's a feisty little guy for 14 years old. And they can be a little stubborn, but their personality comes through. Some of the crazy things that they've told me is there was one particular dog who was a male dog, and the pet parent asked me, would my dog be okay with me adopting? And this little dog, I don't remember if it was a Chihuahua, but this little dog told me it's okay to adopt another dog, but not a male dog, because I want to be the only male dog in the house.
Wow.
So, and the pet parent totally got that, so it's just kind of crazy what our pets tell us. So
Yeah, that is. That's pretty amazing. Now, while you're doing this, have you, I know this is going to sound strange, have you ever come across any negative comments or negative energies?
in terms of pets,
Pets or spirits when
yeah,
you're.
people, yeah, absolutely, yeah. So I'll address pets first. So with pets, the only negative stuff that I've encountered with pets is when they tell me about abuses that they suffered before they came into a different home. And that's really hard to hear. I mean, I do dog rescue. All of our dogs are rescues, and actually all three of our kids, our dogs, were abused in some way or another, and we've had to figure that out and help them get over, that what they've encountered. So, in terms of dogs and cats, those are the bad kinds of things, but they usually move past it. And for anybody who has a rescue that was abused, know that when they pass, they'll be waiting for you because you showed them the love that they never got before. They will not be connected to the people that did not treat them with love.
Oh, wow.
So that's kind of important. Um, Another thing too is that before I get to the people, the crazy people, um, that our pets understand that it takes a lot of courage for us to make the decision to help them cross over. They understand because they're reading our emotions. They can tell when we're stressed, um, and and they usually give us signs that they're just done. We have 4 dogs in spirit now, and each one of them has given us signs. So if your dog isolates themselves and they're normally an interactive social dog, that's a sign. If they stop eating, that's a sign. If they stop playing, that's a sign. If they want to sleep the entire time, that's a sign. So just pay attention to what they're doing, and if they're in pain, certainly um, do the humane thing. I mean, it takes a lot of courage for us to do that. But know that once we do, our pets appreciate the courage that we showed to do that.
Wow. And it's all. Uh-oh, are you there?
I'm here.
Did you hear what I said? We
No, it
blinked.
was a glitch.
Yep. In the Matrix, it says, "Does your puppy come across as a human voice?"
Only the words that he knew, I will hear. Um, Otherwise, it's really just pictures of things. Yep.
Another one says, "I've seen this video with this dog, Tyler."
Yeah. Tyler is our dachshund, who is a super great personality. He loves to pose for pictures too. So he's the only one.
Really?
Yeah.
Another
He's a
one here
character.
says, "Did he like investigating the Casey mansion with the beds that shake?" Uh-oh, what's that about?
Yeah, so in Upper Marlboro, Maryland, there's a mansion it's called the Causey Mansion, actually, and
Oh, College, that is correct.
yeah, it's a bed and breakfast, and it's haunted. So a couple of years back, the two guys that own it were experience some of their guests were experiencing some crazy things and even some scary things. There was one entity in there that was troublesome, and the entity appeared like 6 or 7 months after they bought the property. It wasn't there when they bought the property. So um, they contacted me, and because I'm part of the group, the Inspired Ghost Trackers, and we went out there. Myself and another medium, two other mediums went out there, and we did some investigating. And I didn't sit on the bed that shakes, but we did cross over the woman who was shaking the bed.
Uh-oh.
So she actually used to live there. She was the matriarch, and she used to shake the bed. Um, and there was another entity in the basement. That was the entity that came out in the basement. And that sounds like a horror movie, I know, but but one of the owners had his gym equipment down there, and he was working out, and he would see a shadow figure walk by, and it gave off really bad energy, and it was actually, he said, it was frightening, and it was very cold. Um, so he wanted to know what it was, and he was very unnerved to keep going down there to try and work out when something had happened. Long story short, when we went on this investigation, um, I had asked if anything had been changed in the basement, and they removed the old boiler, the old furnace rather, from the original foundation. So there was a house. There was an original house that was built there, and that house burned down. And then there was another house, the current mansion, that was built on top of it. But the foundation still existed from the other one. It was just built, the new house was built on top of the foundation. Well, that foundation was disturbed right when that entity, right before that entity started appearing. And we figured out who he was and how he was tied to the property. And we were able to get him to stop doing what he was doing. But that's actually going to be a chapter in an upcoming book of mine.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I'm on edge already. They also asked somebody who was attached to the chest.
I assume that's about the Causey Mansion. I can't remember because I did the investigation like just before COVID hit. That was 3 years ago, and I'll have to go back and look. I mean, I'm over 50. I'll just say that. I can't
I'm
remember.
48. I'm not too far behind, so. But it's amazing the strides and investigations that you have done and completed, throughout the years. It's very fascinating. It really is. Where I'm moving to, I'll have access to some paranormal groups, Sasquatch, Bigfoot groups. So we're going to expand and do some shows live out in the field and some more investigations. So I look forward to that. And you mentioned Kentucky, and that's where I'm from. That's where I'm at right now.
Oh, cool.
So I'm actually in Lexington, Kentucky,
Mhm.
moving to northern Kentucky, back of woods. So it's going to be interesting. So what part of Kentucky did you visit when you
I
was
went to
up
school
here?
in Bowling Green, Western
Oh yeah,
Kentucky
not too far
University.
from me. Yeah,
Yeah, and but I'm familiar with Lexington. I know there's one Dunkin' Donuts there because I went
that
there.
is correct.
And there's some kind of a castle, a house that is a castle that was moved from Europe or something.
Yes, that is correct.
That's the extent of my memory.
Sure is. Yep, sure is. I drove by it a few times, taking the back roads. So yeah, it's
Well,
amazing.
so I navigate the country by Dunkin' Donuts, by the way. So if you're if you live near one, I'll find you.
Yeah, the only reason there's only one around here because that's where all the police cars usually stop real quick.
Uh,
But anyway, I'm not telling on anybody. But yeah, that's it's real interesting that that you have experiences like that, especially Davin in the paranormal with spirits and so forth. Um, it just blows my mind that you're able to do both. I never met somebody with abilities that does the pet side before, so it's kind of shocking. It's new to me. I know it's new to a lot of people. I know you have a large following, which is awesome. In your books and stuff, how do people get a hold of your books?
they're all on Amazon.com. I don't sell them myself, so I'm a self-published guy, and that means that I can set the prices of the books, so I mark them as low as I can because I want people to read them and to learn how pets communicate from the other side and how people communicate from the other side, and get comfort from it. So and again, it's not my full-time job. I'm in
Right.
the science field, so um, I think that one of the reasons I was given this gift is because I can help bring comfort to people, and I've been able to do that to people around the world for the last 12 years, and I'm really humbled and grateful that people allow me to meet their pets in spirit.
Yeah, that was one of the things with my research because I'm very particular who I have on my show, and I kept coming back to you. You kept making the list over and over, and I felt that you were very humble with the background information I kept coming up with, and I know we had a couple of instances where we kept missing each other, and it finally worked out, which I'm very grateful. Thank you for your patience, and
Oh, sure, I'm not going anywhere.
yeah, and thank you to all the admins and moderators out there for all the love that you let me broadcast live in your groups. Thank you very much. And tell us some more stories here. Some whether it's pets or paranormal events or investigations. I know we all love to hear them. He also
Sure,
investigated Boot Hill. Really?
I did. I happen to visit that. So Boot Hill is a burial ground in Tombstone, Arizona, and my my latest book, the last book I published in February 2022, is called "The Ghosts of the Birdcage Theater on a Medium's Vacation," and that the Birdcage Theater is an historic property. It's a theater that was built in 1881 in the town of Tombstone, which is famous for the OK Corral shootout, Wyatt Earp, Doc Holliday, the Earps, and the Cowboys. Um, and So I went there originally in 1994, the year after the movie Tombstone came out, because I was fascinated with Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday, and everything seemed really oddly familiar to me. Um, Turned out when I got to the town, and this was 1994, so there was no internet. there
Oh,
was
tell me
no,
about it.
there were no cell phones. You couldn't
No
call the map.
Google.
Yeah, nothing. So, so when I got to the town, Grizzly, I had what I can only call a past life experience, because as soon as I walked into the town, in 5 minutes, I parked at the edge of the town where the Birdcage Theater is, and I was with a friend, and we were both dressed up as Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday because we thought it'd be really fun to see the town that way. And even though we're from Maryland, and some people thought we were reenactors, um, but the minute I walked into town, somebody came up to me, a tourist, and said, "Can you tell me where the historic courthouse is?" And I didn't flinch. I just gave them directions, and they were explicit directions, like go 2 blocks down, take a left, go 1 block down, take a right, and it's on your left-hand side. And my friend looked at me and he said, "What did you just do?" I said, I don't know. He said, "There's no way you could know that. We don't even have a map of Tombstone." And you know, this is when they had big paper maps of the state. Tombstone is just a tiny little dot southeast of Tucson. So there's no way I could have known the outlay of the streets or where anything was. Sure enough, we walked that way, and that's where the courthouse was. And he said, "How in the world do you know that?" And at that time, I couldn't figure it out. But now I know it's because I lived in Tombstone in the 1880s before. So
that's something else.
So when I went back in the 1990s, my abilities weren't developed. So when I went back after my abilities had developed, after Buzz passed away there, he's over here, in 2005, I decided I would go back in 2019 and take a friend of mine who had never had a paranormal experience. By this time, I had been doing paranormal investigations for like 7 years, talked to a lot of dead people. Long story short, we took the ghost tour at night because they have a ghost tour at night, and then they have self-guided tours during the day, full of historic things in the birdcage. It turned out I encountered 11 between him and I. We encountered 11 different ghosts that were confirmed by the people that work there as actual people that lived and worked in that environment. So it's pretty crazy. So Ghost of the Birdcage Theater was an amazing book to write. It's short, but one of the things that I do too is I sketch the ghosts out because I can see them. So and because I used to like to draw superheroes, it all comes around. In the book, you'll see, I think, 5 or 6 sketches of the ghosts, some of the ghosts that I encountered. And you'll see photographs of 2 ghostly faces that we captured. My friend captured one of an old miner looking back at him in a mirror, and he freaked out. And I captured another one who it turned out to be, I think he's an actor that used to perform there in one of the paintings. His face appeared in one of the paintings. Yeah, Ghost of the Birdcage Theater, just a crazy book.
Yeah, I want that book. Exclamation.
So the birdcage, the reason the birdcage is so haunted is it was only open for 8 years. It opened officially Christmas Eve, 1881. It closed in 1889 because the silver mines around Tombstone flooded, and the silver mines were the reason that Tombstone became a town, because when they struck silver, everybody came in, they built a town around the mines, and that's what happened. The Birdcage was an active theater where they had performances. It was a gambling hall, it was a saloon, and it was a house of ill repute. There were ladies and gentlemen there, and they had their own, bunks and so forth. So there were 4 things that were happening in there all the time, 24/7. And as it turned out, 26 people were murdered in the Birdcage Theater. And you can go in there today, and it appears just as it was, because in 1889, when the mines flooded, they closed the doors and they never came back. So everything is still in there, including the ghosts.
I was going to ask about that. That's amazing.
Yeah. So that was a fun book to write.
Oh, I bet it was. Absolutely.
One of the terrifying things, though, that started happening to me as I started connecting with ghosts, and sometimes spirits will do the same thing, is that they will share their pain of death with me. So as you can well imagine, you go into a place like the Birdcage Theater, 26 murders in there. I was shot in the back in one place. I felt shot in the chest in another place. And all of these ghosts that shared this pain of death with me, I was able to confirm with the tour guides of the actual person and how they died. The most unnerving one for me, I think, was when I walked into the theater area and I felt a bullet go through my throat.
Ooh.
And now I don't, of course I wouldn't know what that feels like, but this ghost was shot in the throat, right in the theater area, the birdcage, where there used to be gambling tables, and he was cheating at cards. And on the ghost tour, when I walked in, I felt the bullet go right through my throat, and I was thrust against the back of the wall. And my friend who was with me turned around and he asked me what's going on. I actually couldn't speak. But what I could feel was I could feel blood rushing out of my throat, like out of a hole in my throat. And I could actually taste the coppery taste of blood in my tongue. And that freaked me out. The guy gave me his name, told me why he was killed. I confirmed everything with the tour guide about him. And, I'll be darned if I went back the next day during the day, that guy did the same darn thing to me. He shared his pain of death. One thing that's not in the book, and that if you do read the book, this is kind of a bonus. When I went back during the day, I wanted to take my cell phone and film the different areas where I encountered different ghosts, so I could put it up on my social media pages to help promote the book. Well, after he made me feel the pain in the throat again, I said to him, "Look, Jerome, I'm just going to walk around here and I'm just going to use this device," because they wouldn't know what a cell phone is. "I'm going to use this and I'm going to just talk. So if you could please leave me alone, I would appreciate it." Well, Grizzly, I have to tell you, the video worked perfectly with the audio before I get into the birdcage. When I get in there and I ask Jerome to leave me alone, I did 12 recordings. Every one of them has nothing but a high pitch. You can't hear me. That's because he followed me around and he didn't like being asked to leave me alone. I did post a couple of those on my page, and as soon as I got out, I did another recording outside and it was fine. But when I went back and listened to the ones that I did inside, they're high squealing pitch. I thought, that son of a gun, no wonder he got shot.
Wow. That's crazy. I'm surprised the tour guides never asked you to take over.
No, I wouldn't want to. I'm just, so I actually was in the back. Whenever I take a ghost tour or any kind of historic tour, I like to stay in the background so that the people that are paying for the tour listen to the tour guide. I want to be respectful of the tour guide.
Oh, your mic got muted.
Yeah, it's clearing my throat.
Oh. I just looked and Mike went, "Boop."
Yeah.
I thought, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
The gremlins are back.
Nope. My throat's a little dry.
Yeah. So speaking of gremlins, and the reason why I brought that up, people that usually watch my show, I'll give you a little brief history. I interviewed this one person. Unfortunately, she was possessed, and I didn't know it at the time.
Oh my gosh.
And truly possessed. And it got so bad when we try to talk and interview her, cell phones would die. That were fully charged. She had another cell phone, it would die. She'd plug it in and it would just completely die, would not operate. And I could never get a hold of her the rest of the time. So for about a week nonstop, my computer had nothing but glitches off and on. My mouse would do its own little thing. I'm not Catholic, nothing against Catholics, but I went to the Catholic church and got me some holy water. I doused it everywhere in the house. I went back, and Father Miguel actually gave me 2 wine bottles. I thought we were drinking that morning, full of holy water. I left one in the car this past freeze, and it shattered. So it's like, wow. So it was very interesting, and that was very spooky. I can tell you that. I just finally got it cleared.
Wow.
So during that time is when all the pictures and my commode was flushing over and over, and my mom was like, "You need to call the maintenance man." I'm like, "Okay, let's see here. This is Grizzly. I need somebody to come over and look at my new commode in my main bathroom. What's it doing? It's flushing 3 times, mocking the Trinity." Yeah, I can see that happening.
Wow.
So, but I doused it pretty good with holy water, and it doesn't do it anymore. Oh, I mean, I would sit on the couch, watch TV, and you can hear it back to back. Now, mine doesn't have a handle. Let me give it a handle. Mine's got a push button on top. You got to push it.
Oh, so it really takes pressure, a lot of pressure.
Oh, yes.
Wow.
So I got to get another bottle of holy water, a wine bottle, since I'm moving. And I bought these little containers with the crosses and wings on them. I'm going to get filled. So,
wow.
But, you know, being in this type of field that we are in, we experience a lot of strange things.
Yeah, that's for sure.
More than some than others, I can tell.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can do half things you've done, especially tasting the copper, and yeah, that would I couldn't handle that.
Yeah, that was it was gruesome. But I also have a book called Case Files of Inspired Ghost Tracking,
Really?
where it describes quite a number of paranormal cases that I've been on with the group. And one of the most horrific ones was one of the early ones that I was asked to do. And my fellow medium and friend Troy came along with me, and this was after a tech team went in. A tech team goes in first, and then the mediums are called in another day. And mediums are never told the address until 1 hour before they're supposed to be there. And we like it that way, because we don't want to know anything about the house. We don't want to know anything at all. We don't even want to know where it is until we have to leave our driveways to drive there. Long story short, it's called the Double Murder Ghost Investigation. It's in the Case Files of Inspired Ghost Tracking. And in summary, this was the first time Troy and I were working together, and we were complementing each other. We thought it was a domestic situation, but it turned out to be more horrific than that. There were 2 women, one older, one younger. They were related. They were in-laws. They were brutally murdered and abused by a man in the house that was not related to them. And they shared every single pain with me. I was punched. I was pushed down the stairs. I was kicked. I was shot. I was stabbed. And then the woman told me that she was sexually molested. And it was horrific. And it turned out that the manager of the group, who was there during this investigation, as we were relaying these feelings and these messages from these 2 women, she had a copy of the police report, and she verified every single thing that we were told by these 2 ghosts. And the murderer is doing double life, but they caught him. But it was horrific, and I will never, I just can never get that out of my head. But it's in the Case Files of Inspired Ghost Tracking. And if you want to know what it's like to go on a really challenging paranormal investigation, because we never know what we're going to find, that's a case to read.
You are the first psychic I never heard any background noise of chatter. people talking, any footprints walking or footsteps, any orbs flying around you or anything. It's unusual. Usually
Well,
I get a lot of,
I think my 4 dogs are guarding me on the other side.
is that what it is?
Yeah.
Because usually I'll be sitting there and I'll hear, like children or like a conversation amongst adults. And I finally ask, is there anybody else in the room with you? And they're like, oh, no, that's just my spirit guides. I'm like, oh, okay. It's
Yeah,
all
my dogs in spirit like to sleep.
dude. I had to throw that out there because I know somebody's going to ask sooner or later. Because that is unusual. Usually I have some kind of other interference with the interview at some point.
And even 2 of our living dogs are here with me in this room, and they're being nice and quiet. So
Wow, that's surprising.
yeah, they're good kids.
Yeah, see, if my 2 were here, they hear a noise outside, they'd be running around, barking. You can hear them. You know how chihuahuas are. So.
I do.
But it's real fascinating to hear that stuff, especially investigating. And that's one thing I would like to do too. Probably this is still January, right? I say towards the end of January, beginning of February, throw an invitation out there for you and your group to come on as a whole. And
that would be cool.
Yeah, I can take up to 10 people at once. So that would be fun to have everybody on at once. And
I think that one of the things we could talk about. Well, there are 2 things we could talk about. One is the double murder ghost investigation. I can get Troy, the other medium, and Margaret, the founder, and we can discuss that with you, because there were a lot of aspects to that. I could discuss that for probably 2 hours, but and we could also reference the Causey Mansion that one of your viewers mentioned as well. But the case files of inspired ghost tracking probably has about 30 cases in it. Things that range from people who used Ouija boards and opened portals to dark areas, and where all the people in the family fell ill. We've dealt with poltergeists, which are energy that simulates a ghost, generated by usually the emotional energy of a teenager, a stressed teenager. We've run into a whole host of different scenarios with ghosts. So yeah, we would love to do that.
Yeah, or somebody's already saying yes. So people that are watching, I know that the tracker unfortunately doesn't track the amount of viewers that we're actually watching. I broadcast on 13 platforms and over 55, I think yours is 58 Facebook groups. And somehow the program, the professional program, StreamYard I'm using, don't track it all. So bear with me on that. They're working on that in the back channels. They know the programs I'm using. They're working with me to get that fixed. So I don't know why it's not counting properly, but they are working on that. So, but I can dip into the backstation channels and get a roughly an idea count, but it's not an actual count. So thank you for everybody that's tuning in and going to tune in later. Very interesting to have Rob finally on the show. But yeah, I think that'd be a great idea. I really would. I did hear something a minute ago. Sound like a child. I don't know if that was on your end or my end. So who knows?
Nope, not here.
Do you have any child spirits that ever come through on your end and at any time?
No, they're always pets. Really?
Okay. So
yeah.
It must have been on my end. So hopefully it's a children or a child outside in the breezeway then. Because that kind of got me perked up and made me cough a little. I was like, here we go. Starting to get some activity here.
Yeah, if you hear a bark, it's probably from my side.
See, I wouldn't think twice about a bark, though, because, there's been many times when mom and I act up, I'll just sit there and just like slowly reach over and click my mic and hit mute. And they're like, did you hear dogs? I'm like, yes, unfortunately, I did hear dogs.
Yeah.
Was it on your end? No, it wasn't. No, it's mine. I'm sorry.
So I can tell you the reason why I decided I would only stick with pets.
Oh, I
And
can understand why, but still, it's real interesting, and and that's a special place in people's hearts that are very warm and touched by,
mhm,
you know, and pets are used so much for people that have PTSD to help them
yes,
heal. And
yeah,
I'll be honest with you, pets make people live longer. I feel strange without my two little ones not with me right now. I really do. It's weird being here alone. I mean, anytime I hear a creak or something going around, I just shake my head. So, sometimes when you look around me, I'm thinking, okay, somebody popping up behind me or something. Because there's been times where some of my psychics be like, "Sorry, I got to interrupt you. Do you know so and so?" And blah blah blah. I'm like, "Why? Do you see them?" They're like, "Yeah, they're standing right behind you." I'm like, "Oh, great, thanks."
wow, that's a
So it
little
never
unnerving.
knows, never knows. But I'm very impressed with everything that you have done and continue to do. But I would really like to have everybody, on the show with you. I really would. I think that'd be a good show to have. I think that'd be awesome to have. I really do. How do people get a hold of you?
They can go to my website, which is robgutro.com. It's right up there. And if they can't remember my last name because it's kind of a massacred French name, they can just type in petspirits.com.
Gentlemen, as we come back to reality.
Nope.
All right, there we go. Try it again.
All right. If they can't remember robgutro.com, they can go to petspirits.com. That's the easy.
Petspirits.com.
Yeah,
That is
that's
interesting.
probably
That
the
really
easiest.
is. That
And I'm
really
on
is.
Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff. But Amazon.com is where all of my books are. And my Pets in the Afterlife 4 book about cat messages is coming out tomorrow, January 10th. And
That's awesome.
I have
That
to
really
say,
is.
I have to say, as a self-published guy, it's really weird to me that so my that book is on pre-order and it went to #1 in pet grief,
Well,
which
I wonder why.
and my previous two books, The Pets in the Afterlife 3 about dogs and The Birdcage Theater, also went to #1 on Amazon. And I thought, oh my gosh, wow, I am so humbled that that people would want to read, and find out about the paranormal from the way that I understand it. So I just thank you.
Well, and I tell you what, we cannot thank you enough. And I guarantee this, if you were a doctor in my area, I had to go see a neurologist, I would definitely be elated and ecstatic to see you. That's for sure. Because it's hard to find people like you that are so humble.
No,
That really are.
well, thank
And
you.
that's being honest. And I'm guaranteed that the people that do see you that really don't know you on a personal level probably really appreciate your services as well. Because I know that extends on the professional level too. I know it has to. So,
I
but
try.
no, it's been really been amazing. It really has. And I'm hopefully everything goes really well for you. And I can't wait to actually get you back on the show with your other people and see where it goes, what rabbit hole we go down through.
I look forward to it. And just a couple of things that that Spirit wanted us to know is that every day is a good day as long as you can get out of bed or wake up. Your pets are waiting for you on the other side. That love connects you forever. So you will see them when it's your time, and they hear you. So all you have to do is either vocalize their name and they can hear it, or you can think about them because thoughts are little electrical impulses of energy in their energy. So they can hear you too. So that love never dies. It's always around.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard from Mr. Rob Gutro there. We'll definitely have him and his investigative team back on Grizzly show. If you want to get a hold of Grizzly anytime to be one of his potential guests on the show, you can email me at Grizzly, the paranormal at gmail.com. Once again, that's Grizzly, the paranormal at gmail.com. From coast to coast and around the world, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for your time. Until next time, we must say goodnight. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. Bye-bye.